Okay, so we're going to talk about UFC 324 today, but I think first, before the UFC gets rolling in 2026, we can do some predictions. So who do you think is going to be the champion in each division by the end of the year? Let's go one weight class at a time. I'll say who I think, and then you say who you think, and then we can see if we agree. So let's start with women's strawweight. I think the first fight that's going to happen is going to be Mackenzie Dern versus Zhang Weili. Because Weili lost so convincingly to Valentina, I don't think she's going to try and stay at 125. Because why would she stay there if she doesn't have a real shot at beating the champ, right? Unless she just wants to wait it out. But she's not young. I think she's kind of nearing sort of the end of her career. And so most likely, if she wants to stick around, she's going to go back down to strawweight. And I think Weili will win that fight against Mackenzie Dern. After that, it's a bit of a toss-up of who is going to fight her next. Because I think women's strawweight is kind of in a weird spot. There's a handful of people who have all sort of fought each other. Some have won some of those fights, some have not. You got people like Tatiana Suarez, who just beat Amanda Lemos. So Amanda Lemos is out of the picture, even though Amanda Lemos beat Mackenzie Dern, right? Didn't she? If I'm remembering correctly. Or no? Pretty sure she did.
She did.
Yeah. Right? So it's kind of weird. But Suarez got absolutely squashed by Zhang Weili. So I feel like Suarez probably won't get a title fight this year. Then you got Virna Jandiroba, but it's like, why would she get another title shot? She just lost, right? Then you got Yan Xiaonan. Yan Xiaonan got smoked by Weili too, right? If I'm remembering correctly. The only other person I think that maybe will mix things up is Jillian Robertson. She's young. She is got really solid grappling. And I don't know. I think she could maybe challenge Zhang Weili. But if I'm hedging, like if I'm gonna pick one person, I'd probably pick Weili, because I think Weili beats Suarez, she beats Jandiroba, and she beats Xiaonan. I don't know who else she might be fighting. This is of course after the Dern fight, if it happens at the beginning of the year. So I think Weili will be champ at the end of 2026 for strawweight.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Like, I think Mackenzie Dern will probably fight once in 2026. I mean, I don't think she's been like always a really active fighter, and she'll probably fight Zhang. So I agree with what you said.
Okay, women's flyweight. I think the first women's flyweight fight of the year, the first title fight, will be Valentina versus Natalia Silva. Because, well, Natalia Silva is fighting Rose Namajunas this weekend, right? Is that this weekend or the following weekend? I don't know, remember exactly.
It's this weekend.
This weekend? Okay. And I think she probably wins that fight. I think she's probably the next best fighter at flyweight right now. And that fight is actually kind of hard to say. Valentina looked extremely good against Weili in her last fight. So I don't know. That, it's hard to see her losing at this point. But suppose Valentina wins. The next, I think, fight to determine who's going to get the second title fight of the year is Macy Barber versus Alexa Grasso. And Alexa Grasso already beat Macy Barber, if you remember, a few years back. Yeah, she beat her, probably in 2020 or something, or 2021. But I think it's Macy Barber's last loss, if I'm remembering correctly. I guess I can always look. But I think the question still is Alexa Grasso the same person she was who fought Macy Barber, and vice versa? Macy Barber has a lot of momentum right now. I feel like she's very scrappy. I don't know if she's super technical, though. So when it comes to this question of who's going to be champ at the end of the year, I feel like it doesn't matter if Macy Barber or Alexa Grasso fight Valentina. I think both of them will lose. So if I'm going to say who's most likely to be champ at the end of the year, I'll probably pick Valentina. I don't know. What do you think? But of course, remember, the first thing I said was that Valentina would beat Natalia Silva at the beginning of the year. So
I agree with you. I think Valentina probably beats Maisie Barber. I think she probably beats Alessa if they were to have a trilogy fight.
no,
Or
fourth.
have they already?
They've already fought 3 times. First one,
Really?
yeah, first one Alexa Grasso won by sub. Second one was a majority draw, and then the third one Valentina won by decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think Valentina, she already beat Manon. I think Erin Blanchfield is undersized. The only part that I might disagree with you with would be Natalia Silva. I think Natalia Silva and Valentina's, I think it should be a pretty close fight, but I think Valentina will be 2026 champion.
Yeah, she just looked insanely good against Wei Li. I mean, and Wei Li is what, the pound for pound number 2 in the world, and she completely dominated her. It's just hard to see anybody really beating her. Women's bantamweight. Now, of course, the answer to this question, who's going to be champ at the end of the year, a lot of that was going to depend on what happened this weekend. But of course, Kayla Harrison got injured. I don't know how bad the injury is, of whether or not she's going to come back this year or not. But I don't actually think what happens in that division matters that much, because the division is so shallow that the only fight that really matters is Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison. I don't think Amanda Nunes is going to fight anybody else. And I don't think, I mean, at this point, when Kayla Harrison's ready to come back, there's no way they're going to make any other fight besides Amanda Nunes. It's the only one that's interesting. So that's the only fight that's really going to happen. So now the question is, who wins? And I see Kayla Harrison having a pretty clear path to victory if she grapples. I don't think anybody at that division can grapple as good as Kayla Harrison can. I think she's probably more physically just stronger than Amanda Nunes is. I mean, you look at her and she's got arms twice. I don't know. She
got more tests than me.
Yeah, she looks like she belongs in the men's bantamweight division. Sometimes,
Like bigger than Merab.
Yeah. But I think Amanda Nunes is a very good striker. She's fast, and she's not a bad grappler. It's just that I don't know if she's going to be able to beat Kayla Harrison in that department. And so if I had to pick somebody, I'd probably pick Kayla, because I think grappling is a lot more of a reliable path to victory than striking. If you're the better grappler, it's more consistent, right? If you fight somebody 10 times and you're a better grappler, you will win more of those fights because it's slower, it's more controlled, and whoever's stronger and more technical will almost always win. So I would probably have to pick Kayla, but I do think it's going to be, I think it could be competitive. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I do think the person next in line would be Norma Dumont, but I don't think she'll fight for the belt in 2026. I do think Kayla and Amanda is the fight to make, especially since she just had the neck injury, and they'll definitely rebook that. I agree. I honestly think Amanda Nunes has better striking than Kayla because of Kayla's fight against Ketlen Vera. She kind of looked, human in that fight.
For sure.
And she was getting caught with a lot of elbows. So I don't think it's like a total shutout for Amanda to beat her. But I do think Kayla will get it to the ground probably relatively easily, especially since Amanda's been out for so long. She probably is pretty rusty, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's
you know what
I
mean?
For sure.
So my pick would definitely be Kayla, but I'd probably put it to like 75 to 25 kind of percent when it comes to Amanda and Kayla, in favor of Kayla.
Yeah. I wonder what the odds were for that fight. I never actually saw, but I'd be curious to see what they were.
It was probably close to a pick'em, but it was probably like a minus 150 to Kayla. That's what I would think. At least.
Okay, let's move on though. Men's division. I think Joshua Van will probably defend his title once before Pantoja comes back. Pantoja's injury didn't seem to be as bad as it seemed like it was. Like he didn't need surgery or anything, which is promising. So he might come back sometime in the summer. But I think it'll be weird for Joshua Van to wait that long, especially with considering that he didn't really take any damage, not really any injury. There wasn't much of a recovery from his fight with Pantoja. So I think, and it would also just hold the division up, because right now, Tatsuro Taira and Manel Kape are both pretty clear contenders, and either of those guys, probably Manel Kape, should fight Joshua Van first. And those fights will both be pretty competitive. And I might even pick Kape or Taira in those fights. I might give them the edge. At first I was thinking it was, I wanted to say it was Joshua Van. It was obvious that he would be the favorite in that fight, but Manel Kape is on an absolute tear. He's got a lot of power for flyweight. And Tatsuro Taira has a super, super consistent style. Really, really good at taking the back and controlling the back. And his offensive wrestling is also very, very good. Super, super reliable. So I actually think Tatsuro Taira might even have an easier time beating Joshua Van than Kape. I think if both of those guys were to fight Joshua Van, Taira should be a bigger favorite. But in any case, Pantoja will probably fight either Joshua Van, Manel Kape, or Tatsuro Taira. That's going to be the last title fight of the year at flyweight, I think. And gosh, I feel like Pantoja has a pretty clear path to beating all of them. The dude's a zombie. I mean, I've never seen Pantoja tired or hurt ever. He's always, like I said, he's a zombie. So sometimes it gets a little messy, like when he fought Moreno. But gosh, I can't see any of them really, I don't know if it's possible to drag Pantoja to the deep waters, if that makes any sense. He's always the one, like he lives in the deep waters. But I think Pantoja will probably be champ at the end of the year. I know it's crazy to say this because I feel like I'm saying that nobody's going to change. None of these champions are going to change this year so far. I think the best chance would probably be Natalia Silva if Valentina starts to kind of fall off. But so far, I feel like, I guess Joshua Van is the current champion. I keep forgetting that. So I guess, yeah, it would go back to Pantoja. But I do think Pantoja would probably be Joshua Van. What do you think?
I agree. I think Joshua Van probably would beat Manel Kape. I think he would lose to Taira. And I think Pantoja would beat all of them. I agree with everything you said. I just who do you think Tatsuro Taira is like most like alike in the UFC? You think he's like a Jailton Almeida for flyweight kind of thing, or is he more like a Charles kind of thing?
I feel like, he does a lot of back taking. I want to say he's similar to a Dagestani in the way that he wrestles offensively, but those Dagestani guys don't really go for the back that much in a strict, traditional BJJ sense, where you got a body triangle or two hooks and a seatbelt grip. Like they don't really do that. I mean, if you think about all Makhachev really does front chokes, right? He's got his Dars, and that's kind of it. He I guess he got a Kimura against Dan Hooker. What did he get? He did get an RNC against who's a Brazilian guy, Thiago Moises, but it wasn't in it's not like a Charles kind of back situation, right? Like Charles versus Gamera or Charles versus Gaethje. It's just different. You know what I mean? The position is different. So yeah, maybe Jailton Almeida is actually a pretty good comparison because he kind of, he's pretty good at taking the back. He's really good at offensive wrestling, but man, he's good. He kind of fights like he fights like a super aggressive BJJ style fighter, Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah, I honestly, the fight I would most want to see would be Taira versus Pantoja because you'd get those aggressive scrambles like Pantoja's crab ride, back takes, and then Taira would like just hip out and enter something else. But it's like those are the kind of grappling exchanges that really get me excited about the sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that would be styles like that.
Probably the most entertaining fight of any of those matchups. If I could pick, if I could have my way and pick who would be in the title fight against Pantoja at the end of the year, I'd probably pick Tatsuro Taira. It would be super entertaining. Well, let's move on though. Men's bantamweight. So a lot of this depends on whether or not O'Malley beats Song Yadong. If O'Malley beats Song Yadong, I think the UFC is going to want to make his fight with Petr Yan because, I mean, it's probably the most exciting fight, from a casual fan's perspective that could be made at bantamweight. You could throw it on the White House card. The timing would line up perfectly. It would make a lot of sense if they made that move. And will O'Malley beat Song Yadong? I think he has a real good shot at it. He's longer than he is. He's really good at controlling space. His footwork is pretty much perfect. And so it's a very real possibility that the first title fight at bantamweight of the year is Yan versus O'Malley. And I probably would pick Yan in that fight. I think who Petr Yan fights next, because he'll probably fight twice this year, is going to depend on, as much as this stinks, because Umar is, I want to say he's maybe ranked number 2, and he's fighting again this weekend. I don't think if he wins against Deiveson Figueiredo, I don't think he'll get the title shot, and he'll have to fight one more time. As crazy as that is, he'll probably fight Merab. I think he'll rematch Merab if O'Malley beats Song Yadong. If O'Malley loses to Song Yadong, Umar will definitely get the title shot. But if O'Malley beats Song Yadong, which I think is a very real possibility, Umar will probably fight Merab. They'll probably rematch. And the winner of that will probably fight Petr Yan for the last title fight of the year. Now, I think Yan probably beats both of them, but I think Umar will give him a harder time because, well, we've already seen that Yan has the capacity to absolutely steamroll Merab. But I think Umar is a little more well-rounded than Merab is, and Yan is kind of a well-rounded fighter. So while Yan could, use his stand-up to really nullify Merab, I don't think it'll be quite as easy against Umar. Merab's very one-dimensional style works really well against other one-dimensional fighters like O'Malley, right? Merab will beat O'Malley. If they fought 10 times, I think Merab would win most of them. But I don't know. So at the end of the day, who's going to be champ at the end of the year? I think it'll be Yan or Umar. And if I had to pick, just because of how good he looked, I have to pick Yan. The dude just looked absolutely insane against Merab. He looked unbeatable. So that'd probably be my pick.
Yeah. I don't, disagree with you in anything you said. I think Suga has a really good chance of beating Song Yadong. And they would definitely want to make that fight for the White House. Makes the most sense. And I just said it was like the best fight for like a casual's perspective. And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't call myself a casual, but I would love to see that fight. Like,
100%.
I don't get.
Casual.
I don't get where the Suga hate comes from. Like, people just like, I've been hating on Sean since he lost to Merab, and I'm like, dude, I still love bro. Like,
dude,
he's entertaining. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a really entertaining style, and he's good, right? It's not like he's just somebody who goes in there and throws caution to wind and makes it look like a bar fight. He's really good, and he's fun to watch. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with his style being more friendly to casual fans. He's a good fighter. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. For sure.
Yeah. And Merab's fans, I feel like, have slowly turned into like the kind of Khabib fanboys at the same time, where they're just like, if Merab beats you, every comment section you make a video, they're going to put a gif of Merab, like with the belt in the air. It's like, dude, can you just like enjoy like the sport? You know what I mean? But to go back to what I was actually saying, I do think Petr Yan would beat Suga for the fact that it would be a 5-round fight in a title fight, because we know Petr Yan is like notorious for being a slow starter. And I think that's the only reason Suga really beat Peter, is because he just wasn't kicking up to the pace he needed to fast enough. But I think in a 5-round fight, I think Peter will take that probably like 49-46 maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about the fact that there'll be a 5-round fight versus 3-round fight. And you're right. I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favors Yan. Literally every single fight he's ever been in, the later it goes, the more he dominates. Think about Corey Sandhagen. When you fought Corey Sandhagen like 5 years ago, the first round was pretty competitive. The second round was close, but was starting to kind of tip in Jan's direction. And the third round was super dominant for Yan. Okay, men's featherweight. Now, Volk doesn't want to retire. if he loses to Diego Lopez, I don't think the UFC will make a trilogy fight. It's just going to block the division up too much. Movsar already deserves a title shot on paper, even though nobody wants to see that. Lerone Murphy on paper also deserves a title shot. And so there's no way they'll remake that fight and just keep, dragging that out. I think Volk will probably beat Lopez again because I honestly thought the first time he beat him was pretty decisive. In fact, I don't even know why really they're making this title fight. But I think Volk will win that fight again. Now, that means that he will probably fight the Movsar or Lerone. And I think he'll win those fights too. Because even though Lerone Murphy had that insane knockout recently, he's not the kind of fighter that he needs to beat Volkanovski. Volkanovski, if you play a very technical style, like a very slow, you pick your shots against Volk, you will lose that fight almost every time. It doesn't matter how good you are. Even someone like Makhachev, who I consider to kind of fight like that, had an extremely close fight against Volk. Volk completely, he's 3-0 against Max Holloway. Max Holloway is one of the best fighters in the entire organization right now, and he's 3-0 against him. That is an insane accomplishment. And Lerone Murphy and Movsar, they're not get in your face and back you up and destroy you enough to beat Volk. And Diego Lopez is kind of like that, but it's just different. If you're going to beat Volk, you need to be someone like Ilia Topuria, where, you tank some of Volk's shots, you don't really respect them, you back him up, and then once he's against the cage, you really, really go for it. That's the kind of fighter you need to beat Volk, and I just don't think Lerone or Movsar are either of those guys, or either of them are that kind of fighter. So I think Volk will probably be champion at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny, who you were describing of like the person to beat Volk sounds a lot like Steve Garcia, Jean Silva, and Kevin Vallejos. I would say 2 years from now, all those guys that are in between ranks 10 and 15, they're all going to be like top 6 and like very hungry for a belt. It's funny when you were talking and you were talking about how like Movsar deserves a title shot and stuff and whatever. And it just made me think, in every division, there's probably like 2 to 3 contenders that deserve a title shot that aren't getting it. And it's funny how like 10 years ago, everybody who was ranked wanted a title shot, but only one contender really deserved it. And it's funny that champions just aren't fighting enough to now in almost every division, we have probably at least two contenders that are coming off of impressive wins and deserve a title shot. And our champs are just only fighting once a year. It's just kind of frustrating when you just look at, like, we have Umar Bantamweight, who's not getting a title shot, and he probably deserves it. And then at Flyweight, we have Tyra and Cop, and just like, we just have multiple people that deserve it. And it's funny how, I don't know, it's just tugging my brain a little bit. But you have anything to say to that?
I was just going to say, I think that the UFC gives away too many rematches. I think that's the main problem. Rematches always bottleneck divisions because usually, if someone's getting a rematch, there's probably some other guy who's in the top 3 who really is the one who should get the title shot. And I don't know why. I think rematches should really only exist if the person who's getting the rematch has really, really, really convinced everyone that they deserve it, right? Think about Robert Whittaker. When he rematched Adesanya, he had to win, I want to say 3 fights before he got the rematch. That you have really, really just convinced everybody that you deserve the shot over the other people in the top 5. And so for example, Volk getting this title fight, Diego Lopez getting this title fight against Volk, it totally is bottlenecking the division. And I agree with you. I really hope Volk retires at the end of this year, because if he's around next year when guys like John Silva, Steve Garcia, Kevin Vallejos, when those guys are in the top 5, they have the style that will be a problem for Volkanovski.
Yeah, they'll test that chin. Another name that you didn't mention is even just Max Holloway in this trilogy, right? He lost to Volk the first time, then had an immediate rematch because he was a dominant champ before that. And then he had to win two fights. He had to beat like 2 top 6 contenders to get his third fight. Like Diego Lopez fighting like a number 9 ranked Jean Silva and then getting another title shot. It's just unfair, honestly. But I would say Volk champ 2026 most likely. But yeah.
Yeah, if I were the matchmaker, I would have probably had Diego Lopez rematch Movsar, and I would have given the title shot to Lerone Murphy. That would have made a
100%.
lot more sense. But here we are. But that's a topic for next week. Okay, lightweight. Now, I don't want to spoil who I think is going to win between Gaethje and Paddy, because we're going to talk about that at the end. But obviously, no matter who wins that fight, is going to fight Ilya. Probably at International Fight Week in June or something. Maybe Ilya will fight sooner than that, depending on how this fight goes. If the fight between Gaethje and Paddy is an absolute war and they need a long recovery period, maybe it'll probably happen, in June. But I suppose it could happen in maybe April or May. And I think Topuria beats either. I think he beats Paddy, and I think he beats Gaethje. And I think what will probably happen is I hope Ilya fights again this year. And to me, it seems obvious that he'll fight Arman. Arman doesn't need to fight anybody else at this point. He can wait for a title shot, and he should be able to get it. If he fights somebody else, I'm not sure who it would be. But if I were to have to guess, I would think the last title fight of the year at lightweight will be Arman versus Ilya. And I think Ilya will probably win that fight too. I mean, he's the pound for pound. What is he, pound for pound number 2 or 1? And for good reason. I mean, the dude is extremely well-rounded. Arman's grappling, in my opinion, is actually not as sophisticated as a lot of people think it is. He's a very good wrestler, but I feel like every single time he fights, he always gets into some kind of sticky situation where he's almost getting submitted, because he has a very wrestler style game, right? Which works well against someone like Gamrot, but he doesn't really have a care in the world for submissions when it comes to, his offensive wrestling. When he goes for takedowns, he just kind of sticks his head out there. And I'm like, one of these days he'll probably get caught. And Ilya is super, super. I mean, you have to remember, before Ilya came to the UFC, he was a grappler. So I don't know if you want to say something about that, but.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, you're talking about Arman poking his head out, and one day he's going to get caught. And the first thing that popped in my head was his fight with Charles.
Oh, yeah.
And like the guillotine he was in, the triangle he got caught in the second round that nobody talks about, but that was like the tightest triangle I've ever seen for like 3 seconds. And then the Darce. And I agree with you. I think Ilya will probably flatline whoever wins. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it's funny you were talking about how it's like, if it's a war, they'll need more time. And it's like, dude, imagine going through a war just to get flatlined by Ilya. It's so, yeah.
That's the state of the lightweight division right now.
Dude, yeah. But a fight, I mean, I'll say this. I think Ilya will be the champ, of course. A fight I really want to see, I would love to see Arman fight Charles in a 5-round fight. That's like one of my dream fights right now. I know Arman will get the title shot next, but I'm just saying, in a world where Dana wants to keep screwing over Arman and maybe Charles wins or loses against Max, I could see them setting up a fight with Arman for a 5-rounder. I hope so. I don't know.
That'd be sweet. Yeah, I actually forgot to mention Max Holloway. I think Max Holloway maybe could fight for the title at the end of the year if he beats Charles. That would certainly mix things up, because I think Max would probably have the best shot of anybody at lightweight right now to beat Ilya. But okay, welterweight. Now, to me, the next person to fight Islam is pretty obvious. It's either going to be Ian Gary or Usman. And if the UFC, Islam wants to fight Usman because he thinks it's good for his legacy, I personally think Usman is not the same guy he was 5 years ago when he was just dominating welterweight. If Usman fought any of Michael Morales, Ian Gary, Carlos Prates, Shavkat, he loses to all of them. And so if the UFC gifts him a title shot against Islam, ironically, I actually think Islam is a fight that it is easier for him stylistically than the others because Islam will wrestle with him. And I think at this stage in his career, Usman's kryptonite is somebody who's tall and hits like a truck. Think about Buckley. There were moments when he fought Buckley where it seemed like Buckley really, it was scary. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see him get laid out. Imagine if he fought Prates. Let's not kid ourselves here. That would be a bad day.
Holy crap.
And so in any case, I do think Makhachev will beat Ian Gary or Usman. Now, Shavkat is kind of the I don't want to say dark horse. It's probably not a great description because he's a number one contender. But Shavkat is kind of the person who kind of throws a bit of a wrench in all of this because he realistically should have gotten a title shot a long time ago, but he got injured. And so I think it's unlikely the UFC will give him a title shot for his first fight back. They'll probably give him a tune-up fight first, especially because there's so many new faces in the top 5. And so after Islam beats Ian Gary or Usman, I think he'll fight the winner of Shavkat and Michael Morales. I think Shavkat and Michael Morales will probably fight sometime in the middle of this year, maybe even early, maybe in the spring or something. And so who wins in that fight? God, I'd probably pick Shavkat. I think Morales is good, but he's mostly just kind of a physical force than he is extremely technical. When you look at the last 2 fights he won against Gilbert Burns and Sean Brady, he kind of just didn't respect them at all and just kind of bum rushed them. And he's a big dude, so he could get away with that. But Shavkat is, he's tall as well. He can meet him with an equal and opposite force, just like size wise. And so if I were to take a guess, I would think that Shavkat will probably fight Makhachev by the end of the year. And I think some of that depends on how good Shavkat looks. If Shavkat completely rolls through Michael Morales, that fight with Makhachev starts to look a lot more competitive. But if he has a tough fight with Morales and it's like a war, he barely gets through it, man, Makhachev, he's a number one contender. And dude, if Makhachev racks up 2 more wins this year, we got to start thinking about him in the GOAT, as the GOAT of the sport. It's getting ridiculous. Double champ, an insane win streak, a lot of finishes, some really good names on his resume. At this point, I think it's getting pretty conclusive. So if I were to take a guess, I'd say Makhachev will probably be champ at the end of the year.
Where do you put JDM in all of this?
I think JDM will probably fight Prates, and he'll probably lose.
Really?
Yeah.
He's very defensively sound.
He is, but dude, I feel like I said that about Leon too. And sure. Prates just rolls through them. I don't know. He's kind of an X factor. I think the only guy who's going to beat Prates is somebody who is a wrestler, but a wrestler, a true wrestler, not like Ian Gary, a wrestler like Makhachev or Khamzat. If Prates, for whatever reason, finds himself as welterweight champion and Khamzat just wants to cut some extra weight, he could tack on a double champ pretty easily. That's a fight that he'll win, I think, almost every time. So I do think he probably beats JDM. If that fight got booked, I think I'd have to pick him. Unless JDM pulls out some crazy, game plan like Ian Gary did and beats him that way. Because JDM's stand-up is really good, not to be underestimated. But Prates just seems on a roll, man. He just looks unstoppable right now. So I would have, KO of the year contenders. It's hard not to see him as just kind of an unstoppable force at the moment.
True. Yeah, I'll keep my answer short. I think it depends on how many times Islam fights. I've gotten a lot of flack for my opinion on this, but I think Usman is the style to beat Islam. But I do think Islam beats probably everybody else. So it's kind of like, does he fight Usman? It's kind of a weird fight to make right now, but it's what he's asking for. I don't know. But I would say if he fights Usman, I think Usman would take that fight. But I think if he fights anybody else, I'd give it to Islam. So
if
I don't know, somewhere in there.
If he fights Usman, and let's say Usman wins, going by my prediction, Usman would then fight Shavkat at the end of the year. Who do you think wins that fight?
Yeah. I would probably say Shavkat decision.
So your prediction for the champ at the end of the year is Shavkat. Interesting. Not a bad pick. I see it as a very real possibility too. I mean, I think if Shavkat looks like an absolute monster against Michael Morales, if that fight happens, I don't know. Maybe he will beat Khamzat. But let's move on just for the sake of time. So men's middleweight, I'll keep this one short. Khamzat is going to be champ at the end of the year. Khamzat is probably going to fight Imavov at the beginning of the year. Khamzat will probably win that. And then I think he'll probably fight Anthony Hernandez, because I think Anthony Hernandez will probably beat Sean Strickland. And so, yeah, he beats both of them. And if Sean Strickland beats Anthony Hernandez and gets a title shot, he'll lose that fight against Khamzat too. So I don't have much more to say. Khamzat is an absolute freak of nature.
I agree. The answer is Khamzat. But I do have a question though, like about Anthony Hernandez. Like, do you think that Anthony Hernandez has the best chance to beat Khamzat in middleweight?
It's hard to say. Every time I think of anybody fighting Khamzat, I think of the hydrogen bomb versus the coughing baby. It feels like nobody even comes close. So I don't even know if it's worth entertaining anything like that, honestly. But if anybody's going to beat Khamzat, I guess
Brendan Allen.
Dude, there's no way. I think the person to beat Khamzat is going to be somebody who has the same level of wrestling as Khamzat. And there's just nobody in middleweight who's even close. So I just can't see anybody beating him.
I agree.
Okay, light heavyweight. To me, it seems kind of obvious that Yuri should get the title shot next against Pereira. Carlos Ulberg maybe could get it too, but Yuri's a number one contender. He just came off of a really nice knockout. It's like...
Wait, you think Yuri trilogy? With Pereira trilogy?
I think so. I think it's a fight that the fans will pay for. Well, actually, not anymore because pay-per-views aren't a thing, but you know what I mean. It's a fight that people will want to watch. But I think Pereira will win that, of course, because I just think his style is just really bad for Yuri. I think Pereira is definitely nearing the end of his career. He doesn't have a lot of time left. And so I think what will probably happen is after he beats Yuri, he will probably vacate light heavyweight and go up to heavyweight. And so what will happen is then there will probably be a vacant title fight at the end of the year between Ulberg and Ankalaev. And I want to say Ankalaev will win that fight. Ulberg is really good, but I feel like Ankalaev he's pretty good defensively. And Ulberg is kind of like a more of a counter striker than he really is a true, offensive force like someone like Pereira is. And so if I were to have to guess, I'd probably say Ankalaev would probably be champ at the end of the year.
Really? Okay, I agree with you on like who you think would win in the matchups you said, but I don't think they're gonna make the Yuri trilogy. I think the UFC, for the sake of new matchups, they'll make Pereira versus Ulberg. And I think they'll make Yuri versus Ankalaev. That's who I think they'll match up. And I think Pereira will beat Ulberg, and I think Yuri will beat Ankalaev. That'd be my predictions.
Okay.
And then Pereira would move up, and then that would be a vacated belt. And then I don't know who Yuri would fight for the vacant belt. But
if he beats Ankalaev and Ulberg loses to Pereira, gosh, I don't know. Maybe there's somebody else in the top 5 that would be next in line. It's hard to say though.
If Azamat beats Paulo Costa, they'll probably push Azamat for a title shot.
Oh, maybe.
He's number 6. He's number 6 right now.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, and then heavyweight. This one's kind of a bit of a a weird one.
Controversial.
So I think that based on the eye injury that Aspinall had, which seems to be pretty significant, like it's requiring multiple surgeries, he probably won't fight till, I think he'll probably only fight once this year, probably like late summer. And then, so the question is who's going to be in that fight? I would bet that Gon will rematch Volkov. If Waldo Cortez Acosta completely destroys Derek Lewis, maybe he'll be in the picture. But if I were to have to guess, I would think that Gon versus Aspinall will be the fight that happens. Not to mention that there's kind of a storyline there. Like Aspinall was the guy who was this unstoppable force, and then Gon went in there and kind of showed some weakness. So maybe the UFC is going to want to kind of double down on that. But, in any case, I do think Gon has a good shot at beating Volkov again, even though the first fight was very close, very competitive, and possibly even controversial. Volkov probably should have won that fight on the scorecards, but gosh, I've always felt that Gon was just such a solid fighter against people who, stand up with him and kind of play that game. And so if I were to have to guess, I'd say Gon versus Aspinall will probably be the last heavyweight fight of the year. And who wins that fight? Aspinall probably should be the favorite, even though he looked not quite as good as we thought he was going to in their first fight for the first 4.5 minutes of it anyways. But I still think he should be a favorite, just probably a smaller one. Instead of, a minus 500, he should probably be a minus 150 or something, So that would probably be my choice.
And you didn't even mention Sergey, who's
Pavlovich. I did not. I don't think Sergey Pavlovich beats Aspinall, so I don't think it would really matter when it comes to my choice who's last heavy.
True.
But maybe.
But I was thinking more Sergey versus Gon. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, isn't Volkov ranked number 2 or 1? Isn't he?
He is. He just beat Jailton Almeida.
That's right.
And Volkov beat Pavlovich. Pavlovich beat Blades. Dude, the heavyweight's kind of like a big soup of like everybody's beat each other.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like, it's weird. But my pick would be Gon. It's just pretty self-explanatory.
You think Gon will beat Aspinall?
Yeah. I think so. Like, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I have to just use it's kind of corny, but like use the past to predict the future. And based off their last fight, I don't have any reason not to pick Gon.
Yeah. I mean, that is the best evidence we have of what the fight will look like in a rematch, right? So, and Gon was winning it, So, yeah.
I mean, it's the same reason you would pick Volk over Diego.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, he did really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Enough said. Okay, moving on. Israel Adesanya got booked for a fight with Joe Pyfer. What are your initial thoughts on that? Is this going to be Izzy's last fight? Maybe. I kind of thought he was going to be done, but it sounds like he kind of wants to have 1 or 2 more. He might be one of those guys who wants to finish his career on a win, but the problem is if you start to go downhill, it's like can't end on a loss. But if your career is kind of starting to go downhill, you might end up in a sort of a Tony Ferguson situation. But I think Joe Pyfer is a winnable fight for Izzy if he plays it smart. I think he has to drag the fight out to, the full 5 rounds. I was meaning to rewatch Joe Pyfer's fight with Jack Hermanson because he lost that fight. And Jack Hermanson is kind of chinny these days. You know what I mean? And Joe Pyfer is kind of seen as this, body snatcher kind of fighter, you know what I mean, right now. And so, I don't know. I think that if Izzy drags it out to 5 rounds, he didn't look that bad against Imavov in the first round. He just got caught making a mistake. So, and he actually looked decent for a lot of the fight with Dricus du Plessis as well. Like literally until the finishing sequence in that fight, I thought he was getting the upper hand, and DDP is really, really good. So it's easy to look at Izzy and say, he's washed, like he's 1-4 in his last 5 or whatever. But man, I don't know. I think that Joe Pyfer is a significant drop in competition level for him, considering his last few fights were Alex Pereira, Nasruddin Imavov, Sean Strickland, and who else am I missing? Dricus Du Plessis, right? Joe Pyfer is ranked number 10 or something like that. Lost to Jack Hermanson. It's like, I don't know. I think that fight, it makes sense that Izzy's an underdog just based on how he's looked in his last few fights. But I think if he drags it out for five rounds and tries to really, make it go the distance, and he's really, conservative with where he positions himself, I think that's a winnable fight.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good buy low, sell high spot for Izzy.
Yeah.
Actually, I looked at his Jack Hermanson fight, and I didn't watch the fight, but I looked at the stats, and Jack Hermanson only had like 3 minutes of control time in a 25-minute fight. So he was on the feet most of the fight, and he managed to outpoint Joe Pyfer. So I think it's a very winnable fight for Izzy because that's kind of Izzy's style, at his core. Yeah, I mean, Joe Pyfer, I don't think is as intelligent as Imavov. Like the stance switches and all that crap. Joe Pyfer is kind of just the guy where he's like, I'm just going to back you up, and, I have the power to knock down dudes like Kevin Gastelum. You know what I mean? Kelvin Gastelum. You know what I mean? So my heart, I'm thinking Izzy decision, like to put it blankly, honestly. But if I were to bet the other side, I do think Joe Pyfer's finishing capabilities are absurd.
Yeah.
So
he does have.
It's definitely like I'm nervous for Izzy, but I think I would go Izzy decision.
Yeah, it's one of those fights that Izzy, it's winnable for Izzy, but you're nervous for him. It reminds me a lot of when Kamaru Usman fought Joaquin Buckley, and they're even at similar stages in their career where kind of wondering, man, does he still got it? And yeah, he's got a path to victory against Buckley, but dude, Buckley is just a killer. He just got, dynamite in his hands, and you're kind of worried for him. I'm in the same boat with Izzy. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about UFC 324. Before we talk about the main card, what fight are you most excited for? It can be on the main card, but is there a fighter that you really want to see? For me, what this usually looks like is when it's Saturday and fights are going for 8 hours, and maybe I'm doing some other things and kind of tuning in for portions of it. Usually there's a fight on there, maybe on the prelims or early prelims, where I got to put my things down and make sure I don't miss it. For me, with this fight, it's Alteba Gautier's fight. Just because he's so young, he is, I mean, just look at the guy. He's a physical specimen. And he has finished his last 3 fights in the first 30 seconds or something, or maybe not that fast, but he sort of has like this middleweight Francis Ngannou kind of. He's also from Cameroon too, right? So I don't know. He just seems a little bit. Yeah, I'm probably getting on a bit of a hype train right now, and when he fights somebody who's maybe more skilled, it'll probably, he'll probably get, I want to say fraud checked, but something like that will happen. But for now, I just got to see how far this train goes. I mean, I can't miss an Alteba Gautier fight until he gets fraud checked. Like, a good example of that is like Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot's just going in there and just starching everybody. It's like, where's this, where's the ceiling on this guy? I feel like I'm kind of in that spot with Alteba Gautier.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. Honestly, the only reason why I don't have him at my one is just because, he's just fighting cans, and no matter how good somebody looks, if the competition they're fighting is not decent, you're just watching a crucifixion on TV. You know what I mean?
It has to be competitive for it to be interesting. I get that.
Yeah. And Andrei Pulyaev is like a step up from Tristan Vines, but
that guy did not want to be in there with him. I mean, wasn't that a short notice fight too?
Dude, he was like running away, and then he was like clinching with his arms, like, bro, this guy's getting flatlined.
He did not want to be there.
But Andrei Pulyaev is better than Tristan Vines, but I still think Alteba Gautier will easily get a round 1 finish. Yeah. You know what I mean? I know it's gonna happen. If we're talking about violence, I want to watch John Silva fight. Oh yeah. If we're talking about violence,
cannot miss John Silva.
Like, if we're talking about violence, I'm talking about John Silva, but I also really want to watch Suga. Especially like finally he's fighting somebody that's not Marab. You know what I mean? It's a winnable fight. He's motivated. Like, I'm excited for that fight, but I would say John Silva he's my guy, man. I'm freaking excited for that.
I've seen some posts on social media. People asking if you're going to show a fight to anybody who's a brand new fan, they don't know anything about MMA, and you want to introduce them to the sport and hopefully kind of get them interested in it. What fight are you going to show them? You want it to be one that's exciting, but not stupid. I wouldn't show them that one fight from Pride. Who is it? Don Fry and that one dude where they're just hitting each other in the head. It's like, okay, this is funny, but it's not really fighting. No, I've been thinking more and more lately, Sean Silva versus Diego Lopez is a really good one. That fight was crazy. It was only, a round and a half or something, but the entire time, I mean, I can imagine when that fight was happening, everybody was on their feet for the whole thing because both of those guys just bring it to the table. John Silva is always game, and Arnold Allen is also really like he's a gamer. You know what I mean? He's always going to come to the fight and bring it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say there's two types of of exciting fights. There's a fight where there's two power punchers with okay chins. You just know that one of them is going to get flatlined.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you also have a fight where it's somebody who's a crazy power puncher and somebody who has a crazy good chin. You know what I mean? A good example. It's not really a power puncher, but I'll just throw this out there. Jean Silva and Diego Lopez is what I was saying, but also like Suga versus Chris Moutinho. Right. That was just 3 rounds of a straight, I want to say war, but it's like an onslaught, right? But it was 3 rounds of that. You know what I mean? Versus power punchers, it's like, Derek Lewis versus Sergey.
Right.
The fight lasted probably 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If that, maybe less.
If that. But, Jean Silva versus Diego Lopez is an example of that, where it's just like Diego Lopez can eat anything a Tic Tac. You know what I mean? And Jean Silva was cracking him, dude.
He was hitting him with some hard shots. Yeah, I mean that and then the icing on the cake is that spinning elbow. I mean, just a spectacular finish. Okay, so we've already been talking about Silva versus Allen a little bit. Really great way to start the card. How about the next one? Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas. Maybe we don't need to talk about this one too much. I feel like it's pretty clear that Natalia Silva is going to win that fight. Rose is good, but man, she just doesn't have that dog in her. You know what I mean? And Natalia Silva is extremely fast. I think she can just kind of outpoint her. Definitely is going to go the distance. I mean, I wonder what the odds are on that. Probably like minus 10,000 or something for this fight to go the distance. But in any case, I think Natalia Silva will probably win. If you want a bathroom break, that's the time to do it. Moving forward, what's the next fight? Is that Suga versus... Oh, no, that's
Costa.
Yeah. That's right. Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Derek Lewis. This fight, man, Waldo Cortez Acosta is really good. I feel like he could do the same thing he did to... who's that one big dude that went back to karate combat?
Taliesin Teixeira.
No.
Wait, no. Rebellis to Spain.
Rebellis to Spain. I feel like he can kind of do the same thing to Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis's grappling has always been kind of mid. So that fight either will be a finish or it's going to be a Costa decision. I don't really see that one going any other way. Still should be a fun one. I mean, that's one you definitely want to watch. Derek Lewis has a ridiculous finish rate. And Unk still got it. I mean, that Taliesin Teixeira win last year, that was so cinema. I mean, it reminded me of when, what am I thinking of? Dustin Poirier, when he fought Benoit Saint-Denis. I love it when there's kind of a narrative that the old guy is kind of getting fed to the young killer, and then the older fighter just lays him out. And gosh, that was just such a fun one. But yeah, this should be a good one. And then, of course, Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording. What are your thoughts on that?
On the Sugar fight?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Song Yadong can wrestle.
Yes.
I know he has the abilities. I mean, he trains with like Uriah Faber, who was known to be a really good grappler and wrestler. But Suga has always done pretty good with takedown defense against anybody besides Merab. Look at Aljo. Like, Aljo had some pretty good deep takedown attempts, and Suga got out of them. You know what I mean? So I do think Suga will be able to stuff the takedowns of Song Yadong, because I don't think Song is going to be as explosive as Merab and as relentless and cardio and all that. I do think Suga will keep it on the feet, and I think KO or decision, honestly. That'd be my pick.
Yeah. Song Yadong definitely is a well-rounded fighter. He's got good takedown ability. I know he trains with, what is his name? Justin Flores, the J-Flow judo guy. He's just got the absolute purest no-gi judo out there. He trains with him. I've seen videos with him, and I mean, he definitely has abilities to get the fight at the ground, but I have to agree with you. I think Merab's style of takedowns is such a unique flavor of like an offensive wrestling game. It's just a puzzle for people to solve. I mean, even Petr Yan is a good wrestler. I mean, he took Merab down more times than Merab did in their rematch. And he took O'Malley down, but it wasn't like he completely dominated him on the ground the entire fight. Like, Suga was still able to squeeze out a win by, outscoring him on the feet, and so I agree. I mean, Suga's a longer fighter. He does have to be careful, because Yadong is one of those guys who sometimes just kind of bites down on his mouthpiece and throws like a 3 or 4 punch combination. That's how he got Marlon Moraes. He got Corey Sandhagen a couple times too. But it's a very winnable fight for Suga. And I'd love to see him win, because I just, to this day, I think he's just one of the most fun fighters to watch. He's got such a beautiful stand-up style. His footwork, he's got great power, even for somebody. It's kind of unassuming too. So yeah, I would love to see Suga win that fight, and I do think it's winnable. I agree with you, probably decision. Even though I mean, you can never count out the knockout with Suga. Okay. Lastly, let's talk about Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje, interim lightweight title. And for this one, let's do the weapons and weaknesses analysis. So for both Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, pick what you think their strongest weapon is in this fight, right? Their greatest tool they have, if you will, in their tool belt, and also their greatest weakness. So what is something that Paddy or Gaethje does that you think will specifically be, a weak point for their opponent to capitalize? We'll start with Gaethje, talk about Gaethje's weapon and his weakness, and then we'll go to Paddy and do his weapon and weakness. I'll start with what I think is Justin Gaethje's best weapon in this fight, and then you can tell me if you agree or if you want to add anything or change anything. So when Chandler fought Paddy, I feel like one of the biggest problems he had is he wasn't fully committing to his offense. He would kind of go halfway, and Paddy would keep him away from him with a jab or something like that, right? And he was never able to win those exchanges back, right? I mean, when Paddy would hit him with a jab, he never was able to just kind of eat it and then land a shot of his own to sort of even out the scorecard. And that's why Paddy was just able to land so much cumulative damage. But Gaethje is one of those guys who is not afraid to really step into the pocket and trade. Even after he lost to Holloway, when he fought Fiziev the second time, he will go in there and get in those exchanges where you just kind of go, ooh, you know what I mean? You kind of tense up because you're like, oh my gosh, if one of these shots lands, one of those guys could go down. And against Paddy, and this will kind of get into Paddy's weakness a little bit too, I feel like that aspect will really, really help him in this fight, because the only way Gaethje's going to win this fight is through the stand-up. I don't think grappling Paddy is going to be good for him at all. So that's what I think is Gaethje's best weapon. Just committing when he closes distance.
Yeah, of course. I think his leg kicks will be big too. Paddy, I said this before, we talked about this in the past when you were a little bit higher on Paddy and And then I brought up the fact that Paddy's takedown accuracy is 29%, and BHE's takedown defense is not great, but it's 70%. And I was like, I don't think Paddy will get a takedown in this fight. I think he'll attempt. I think Gaethje loves to clinch and throw uppercuts and stuff, and I think it's kind of a crazy take, but I think Paddy will attempt a flying triangle at some point in this fight if they get clinched up really tight. But as far as like the fight going to the ground where it's Paddy's domain, I think if the fight goes to the ground, it'll be from a knockdown. I don't think it'll be a takedown. And if that happens, I think Gaethje will get the knockdown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say leg kicks to get Paddy off his front foot from Gaethje will be, I mean, it's kind of his biggest weapon in every fight, I think, is leg kicks.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Gaethje's leg kicks are such a big part of his game, no matter who he fights. Now, for his weakness, ironically, in a lot of fights, you could see this as one of his strengths. But I think in this fight specifically, it could be a weakness. I think it's clinching. I think Paddy's best way he's going to be able to take Gaethje down, if he tries to shoot like a double leg, no way he finishes that.
No way.
There's no way he finishes that. The only way he's going to finish a takedown on Gaethje, I think, is if they're clinching and he pulls off some kind of throw. Paddy actually has a history of having some pretty good throws, like judo throws. And so why I think that's a weakness for Gaethje is that Gaethje will definitely clinch up in this fight because he's really good. I mean, generally, he's really good in the clinch. His hooks, his uppercuts, it just seems like whenever he clinches up with people, he always gets the better end of the exchange. But against Paddy, I just feel like it might give Paddy an opportunity to land a throw and bring the fight to the ground where it could start to get really hairy for Gaethje.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Paddy's judo is very underrated. I think another weakness, it's kind of a strength and a weakness for Gaethje, but it's his willingness to be chaotic. He's been getting better at being more technical the longer his career goes. But it takes me back to his rematch with Fiziev. And it's like, he throws a kick and Fiziev catches it for half a second and Gaethje decides to do a front flip and then gets into a reverse triangle on the ground. It's that crap. Like Gaethje being so spazzy, he like takes himself down. You know what I mean? And I think if Paddy gets any opportunity where he gets a front headlock on Gaethje in like a turtle position, it's a submission is always live. It's always live. So I would say a weakness for me is Gaethje just being just spazzy and maybe the nerves in the first 2 rounds probably of the fight. And it's like, I think the longer the fight goes, the less live a submission will be.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Okay. Let's move over to Paddy. Paddy, his greatest weapon, in my opinion, is his submission attempts. I think Paddy is somebody who really goes for subs. Even when it's like, okay, that's maybe a bit of a long shot to attempt a submission there, he goes for it, which in this fight is his best path to victory. I mean, you mentioned flying triangles. He's got a nice guillotine, really good one. I even think he could take the back. I mean, he's really, really underrated on the ground. His submission game is. So to me, it's obvious that's his best path to victory. So it's got to be his best weapon for me.
Yeah, I don't really have anything more to add. It's just his submission ability has been his strength in every fight he's been in. Like even something like, like the Bobby Green fight. I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
Like just really like putting it all into a triangle and just getting it early. Like I could see that pretty easily. So
yeah,
I agree. Submission ability.
Okay. And then Paddy's weakness to me is pretty obvious. Is the fact that when he's backing up, he does have his chin in the air a lot. I remember looking back on his fight with Chandler and being really impressed with it. And then I rewatched it recently and I'm a little worried. That with how much he leaves his chin in the air against someone like Gaethje, you can't be doing that. I mean, not against Gaethje. You can't get away with that. So that could be the downfall for him, is what I think. For
sure. He got caught with a lot of like right overhands against Michael Chandler, You know what I mean? And there's different types of power. Like some people think that Michael Chandler has like so much power. He's explosive, but it's like there's two different body types. There's like Chandler power, and then there's like Gaethje power.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Chandler can get knockdowns, but Gaethje can like flatline people. You know what I mean? It's just a different type of power. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I agree with what you're saying. I think Gaethje's gonna have to be a lot more cautious.
So now, the big question: who, when you look at their different strengths and weaknesses and how they kind of mesh with each other, who do you think wins and why? Be as concise as you can. But who do you think wins and what is their path to victory?
I'm high on Gaethje. It's for what I said earlier about the takedown accuracy and defense. I don't think Paddy will get Gaethje to the ground unless Gaethje brings himself there, which I guess is in the conversation. But I think Gaethje will keep it on the feet. I honestly do. I think Paddy will, try to, be on the feet a little bit. And I think he will very quickly find out that Gaethje can crack. You know what I mean? I know that at some point in this fight, Paddy's going to get cracked.
Yeah.
I know it. It might be a knockdown. He might be wobbled. He's going to get hit really hard. And I don't think he's ever been hit like that.
No.
So I think Gaethje will take it.
It took some convincing, and I think you played a part in that. But at one point I was thinking Paddy, but I have to agree. The fact that Gaethje is as big of an underdog now doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when we saw how good he looked against Fiziev after the Holloway fight. I think the Holloway fight changed everybody's perspective of Gaethje, not just the last, 5 seconds or whatever, but he was getting dominated the entire fight. Now, Max Holloway is one of the best fighters in the entire organization, but I think everybody started to see Gaethje, okay, maybe this is kind of the beginning of the end for him. But he looked really good against Fiziev. He didn't look timid. He looked as good as he always has. And like you said, Paddy's best path to victory in this fight is getting the fight to the ground and beating him there, probably by submission. But how is he going to do that? There's no way he's going to be able to shoot a takedown on Gaethje and finish it. I just don't see it. I mean, obviously it could be wrong. This sport is insanely unpredictable, but Gaethje's takedown defense, when it comes to traditional style takedowns like double legs, single legs, these kinds of things, really hard to finish. Right? I mean, the only way Khabib got him down was because he caught one of his leg kicks. And I guess that's a possibility for Paddy too, but I don't think Paddy's going to be able to finish a shot like that as well as Khabib for obvious reasons. So what are we left with? Well, Paddy's going to have to get him to the ground somehow. Yeah, he can maybe land some kind of throw in a clinch, but that seems to be maybe a little bit of a long shot because Gaethje's just so scrappy. I mean, judo, to land a good judo throw, you really have to have control of your opponent's weight. You have to be moving them in the right, off balancing them properly. Otherwise, they just don't work at all. And that's just going to be so hard to do against Gaethje. And when it comes to the stand-up, man, I think Gaethje has the advantage there. So I could very much see, I mean, Paddy does have a really solid chin, but I could see a Gaethje decision. I mean, he's got great cardio too. He can go all 5 rounds. So yeah, I have to agree. I'm gonna pick the underdog here, and I think Justin Gaethje's gonna win this one. And we'll pray for him when he fights Ilya Topuria after that. Because
I do think the leg kicks against Ilya will be definitely his strength when we talk about that if it happens.
Yeah, he'll need it for sure. Ilya's really heavy on the front foot.
And one thing I want to add for Gaethje before we move on is I think people, when they talk about Gaethje, they always like, oh, he's a marauder and all this blah blah blah. And I understand Gaethje he's chaotic and whatnot, but there's two types of Gaethje. There's the one that's pre-Holloway and post-Holloway, right? Pre-Holloway Gaethje, we're talking about him when he fought Michael Chandler, him when he fought Dustin the first time, like 2021 earlier, and then once he got knocked out by Holloway, his last 3 fights have been way more technical and calculated.
Well, what do you mean?
Still
Hold on.
chaotic.
What do you mean knocked out by Holloway? Because that was only 1 fight ago. Or do you just mean like within the last 2 or 3 years? Because he only fought once since he fought Holloway. right?
Really?
Yeah, he just fought Fiziev.
He fought Fiziev, and did he fight anybody after Fiziev?
I don't think so. He fought Fiziev before he fought Holloway, but before that was
Okay.
Oliveira.
Okay, hold up. Maybe I'll say, maybe when he after he got submitted by Charles. That's what I want to say.
Okay, yeah.
After he got submitted by Charles. And I think since he got submitted by Charles, when he fought Fiziev the first time, he's much more calculated and he's not as chaotic.
Yeah.
I think, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, he was even more calculated against Holloway too. Even though he lost that fight, he was a lot more.
Yeah.
He wasn't getting into crazy. And you got to remember, he did drop Max Holloway too. That was the first time Max Holloway had gotten dropped. Yeah, so he wasn't. He had something to show in that fight too. And I agree with you. I think he needs to be technical and just play his game. And it's a very winnable fight for him. I mean, last I checked, he's like what, plus 200 or something underdog, which is crazy.
Crazy value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think it's going to be exciting no matter what. And the card from top to bottom is quite good. Man, starting off with a bang with John Silva and Arnold Allen. You got Derek Lewis and Waldo Cortez Acosta, another great fight. Sean O'Malley's return. And then, of course, this great fight with Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje. Do you got any more thoughts, any more things to say?
I mean, we didn't talk about like Umar or anything like that, but if we're just talking main card, not really. So
Yeah. Well, I think that'll do it for this one.